Sam Pilnick, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great playing with you and getting to know you all this time.
It feels like it's been much, you've said this, but it just feels like it's been so much longer.
Yeah.
And it's really only been 6 months?
6 months. 6 months. And we went, a lot of us, me and you specifically, went from being like nearly strangers to like talking every day.
Facebook friends to real friends.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Well, I just think like the whole summer situation with everything just kind of was like some really interesting opportunities for a lot of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like everybody on a whim kind of moved together and then found each other, you know?
Well, I think a lot of it, like people not having gigs was like something, because it's like in the summer usually it's like chill or whatever. Oh, I got to run to a gig. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. And it's like, because I know a lot of people make money, wedding gigs or whatever. So it was like nice to just kind of like, oh, we're going to play this protest and we'll chill or we'll do whatever and just kind of be available, because there was nothing else.
I almost wonder if none of this would have happened if there wasn't this mass shutdown of everything,
Well, that's what they're saying with a lot of things, like with because I mean this all stemmed from like with George Floyd this summer, like with so many people being unemployed and having free time and stuff. It's like, yeah, more people can take to the streets because they're not working, and there's just that like the rat race is not like blinding them to like what's happening. I'm very guilty of it. Someone who even worked in the city for the last few years still do. Like, oh, I'm just hustling. I'm like, oh, I gotta hustle. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And then like, you kind of just like, you see it, driving on the south side or driving on whatever. But it's like, you're just driving there, you're going to somewhere and you're leaving. Like some of the marches we did on the west side was like, I mean, we were just looking around, just like seeing like boarded up homes or just like no supermarkets or no where like, because I had some students that would commute from the south side to Rogers Park, and one did us like a science fair experiment like about the food deserts, because she's like from there, her and her sister, and it wasn't until like I like went, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it is different when you kind of like read about poverty or like, TV and things kind of, not only do they commercialize it, but what is it? They
glorification of it.
Yeah,
like,
glorified.
Well, because it's like anything else, like it's clicks or it's viewers. So if it's not flashy.
And but sometimes I think it's deeper, because I don't know if so many people in our society are obsessed with poverty, because most people are not rich. So I wonder if it's more of a kind of, subtle reinforcement to try to make us think that we're not as connected as we are.
Well, poverty, I mean, is like, it looks different in the city than it does look on a farmland.
Right.
I mean, I've like lived in a lot of weird places. I mean, I grew up in New York, and it's like a suburb of New York City. I went to school in the middle of upstate New York. I lived in Michigan, Western Michigan, lived here in the last decade. And I could tell, like, I mean, this is why I think someone like Donald Trump won initially, because as great as or whatever about Obama, you can talk about all that stuff and this, the Middle East stuff and the whatever. That's another conversation. But like, I think people expected him to like have a magic pixie dust and just be like, oh, I'm here now. Pfft, everything's fixed. And people want to be like rich, like to get rich quick. And they see someone like Donald Trump, like someone who's, and especially if you're not from New York or you live in an area, it's like, oh, he did this, he did this, he did that. And they don't care. And then it's all this other, there's a lot of other things, obviously, because like living in poverty or in like very rural areas, it's like, they're poor too. You go to the middle of upstate New York, you like drive a few hours south of here, I'm sure.
Right.
I mean, living in Kalamazoo, Michigan, like it's the only blue county in West Michigan. So you drive in, up to Grand Rapids, which is fairly liberal, but it's like also you see like a lot of like Bible Belty stuff, abortions and like God will save you, but then like everyone's broke too. So I think there's just weird concepts of wealth, what wealth means. And it's easy, like we're in the city, we live in the city, most of us work in the city, like, okay, so that's what we're from. But like when you've lived in a in an area like a traditional college town, that when you're in the dead of the winter break or summer break, like it's nothing. There's like 2 bars and a supermarket and a Walmart, and you see some weird things at that Walmart, but at weird times. But no, but I mean, like, because it's like that's the concept, right, of America, right, is like the pursuit of happiness. And so for people like the and I don't think it's new. I think it's amplified because of social media, but like, you know, it's the glory of like, oh, okay, if I work hard, I'll be rich or whatever. But that doesn't always like, but that does that, like, I mean, that's a lot of other philosophical questions of like, will that make me happy? Like, is it possible? Like, do I have to do a lot of work? Like, or like sell my soul, you know? Yeah. I mean, you probably see it now teaching too. Like I've been lucky, like even in my last position before I moved to the north suburbs, like, you know, you hear stories like parents now are just like complaining about this like e-learning. Yeah. And it sucks and it's not equitable and whatever. And that's another conversation, but like, you know, taking responsibility for that. Oh, they're just going to go to school, or I'll see you when you get home. You're only my responsibility after you get home and on the weekends. And now you're my responsibility all the time. And you're learning and you're trying to work and you're trying to do this and that. So like the concepts of poverty or wealth or understanding of that, it's like, it's bigger than, I mean, I think it's just easy to think like poverty and you think Southwest side. But I mean, you know, people who you live in Wisconsin or parts of Michigan, upstate New York, Iowa, whatever. I mean, they're poor too. Texas, I'm sure too. It's easier because it's more concentrated in cities.
Well, I just think it's easier because there's more black people on those parts of town.
That too. That too, because then it's like, and then I think also because of the glorification of the violence that surrounds it, where not necessarily you see there's not necessarily that like violent component, and then there might be in those poor rural. I mean, you hear, you know, the other side stereotypical things like meth labs and whatever.
Yeah, that seems kind of extreme, but I'm thinking even like KKK cats and Proud Boys, like those cats aren't generally wealthy.
Generally you know not,
and they're pretty violent.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But it's like. Yeah, I agree. It's a crazy situation, but yeah, I think to come back to the original, to kind of back in, it's like maybe it would have happened if George Floyd had been murdered and the pandemic hadn't happened. Probably not. If we're going to be honest with ourselves, I
think I mean,
if it would have, because like it should have happened earlier. Like, why didn't it happen with like everybody else?
Well, I think that the protests have been happening. I just think what happened with the pandemic, to be frank, is that a lot of folks that aren't black were brought into it because, like you said, like you kind of alluded to, they were kind of forced to have the capacity for it. It was kind of like undeniable. You can't just go to work and not think about it because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, you're home and you're stuck at home
all the time watching the news and
it's on social media.
There was Breonna Taylor, and that was kind of bigger, I think, in a lot of ways because of how purely savage of a murder that was, you know.
Yeah, but I think like the protest. But the thing is, like, we met because of protesting.
Yes,
and maybe our paths would have crossed if those incidents had happened.
But it would have been like on a gig.
But we would have, or a jam or something. Yeah. But it wouldn't have been as like authentic or as personable or as like kind of deep initially,
right?
Because I've known people more than you and who I feel less comfortable with, you know, and you know, we work very closely together with the CFE and everything else, and yeah, I agree. I don't believe that if the pandemic was happening, I mean, it would just been another thing,
right? I think that,
and then there would be somebody else, you know.
It's important to kind of emphasize what you're saying in that, like, meeting people in other circumstances, like prior or not even, prior, but also outside of a space where we're there to advocate for the improvement of all of our lives. Right.
And I think like it really also then shows like people's real moral compass, because you can like post about it, but like I don't see people. Like you don't see those people in the streets. I mean, like Akshay and I were at that first protest, and it was wild.
Yeah.
And it was like my first like real thing.
Yeah.
And there was moments like people like burning the flag, which I don't personally necessarily agree with. But like, you know, we did what we felt comfortable with, and it's the pandemic, and but people did it safely, and most people everyone was wearing masks, and there were medics, and then when we tried to like be in a situation where it was like we felt comfortable to support, and you know, we got out of there before it got like really crazy and out of hand, but like that was like the first time for me, like being in that situation, someone who's a liberal, you know, who's grown up in liberal bubbles, and I've had a lot of thoughts about it, you know, like Long Island, very liberal bubble. And now because of, you know, this whole pandemic, a lot of more things, like redlining and stuff, which was news to me. I didn't know about that. I mean, growing up in I had 600 people in my graduating class. There was like 2,500 kids at the school. Like, I mean, very few Black people, brown, you know, Asian is getting more popular, but okay. But then I went to upstate New York, and it's like similar.
Right.
And I go to Michigan, and it's like liberal, but it's like not, I mean, it's liberal, but it's not like diverse.
Right. Yeah. I do agree that it takes a certain kind of, person, but also a musician to go out in masses of people during like the greatest health scare we've had in our lifetime.
And our parents' lifetime and their parents' lifetime.
Yeah, you know, like great grandmother was around maybe for the Spanish flu. Maybe.
I think we were just talking like my great grandfather might have gotten to America like 10, maybe like 5 years after. Maybe.
That's crazy. It's also crazy though to think about like great grandmother is not that far. So what kind of brought you to Chicago?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I was in school in Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo. I did my graduate studies there in performance. And when I was done with that, it was like I'd taken a lot of classes and my recital, and I was also doing this like modern dance thing that I was co-wrote and produced, which was like super fun. And I just was feeling a little burnt out from 6 years of schooling. And so I took a year off, and then I was like, okay, I don't really have a job and nothing's lined up. Let's just move to Chicago. I can go back and forth to Kalamazoo if I have, gigs or whatever, which I did for like a few months. And then as I was moving here, I got my first teaching job in Rogers Park, which I was at for 3 years. And then now I'm up in the suburbs, but I still teach for the CPS, and I still stay in touch with students and things, and just try and be involved within the city. And met a lot of people in CFE who were in CFE like right when I first got to the city, which was super nice. Like really really helpful people, like Gustavo Cortines, for example, and like most people in my band, like Ben Dillinger, we met when I kind of first got here, or in like Emily and other, Jacob Slocum, and a number of just from going out and meeting people and being amicable and finding people who are just not just great players, but like good people, which is very important to me as a band leader and just as a person. Like rather just have nice people. If the level is comparable, I'd rather take the nicer person. Rather than enjoy like the bandstand and the set breaks or the recording studio or like this, like than like somebody who's killing, but like I can't stand to be around.
Yeah, I feel that.
I've done, I've made those choices in the past, and I don't regret any of them. No, I don't. It's true. I don't.
Do you think that like kind of becoming a little more, I guess we should say politically activated? I don't generally like that phrase because I feel like it's kind of ambiguous, but I think it's appropriate. Do you think that informed or affect your teaching in any way?
Yeah, it has to, because like so much of the history, especially if I'm like teaching jazz or Black American music, like it has to. Like the music, the licks and stuff, but like the social aspects, and And I was like thankful that I like did. I mean, I remember in high school writing a paper on my like about the. I might have to research that paper how PC it was or whatever, but like definitely how the bandstand was one of the first like desegregated spaces. Like, you know, Lee Konitz playing in Birth of the Cool, or Stan Getz playing with cats and stuff, or you know. And then I remember talking about like the story with Miles Davis getting beat up and his name's on the, you know, that Birdland or whatever, and he's like having a cigarette and he's like they're beating him and his name's on the billboard, and talking about that, you know, 10 years ago. And so but I think more so now, just like being aware of the history of more, I mean, always being aware of it, but like even more so. And I don't necessarily personally have a lot of political music. I haven't really written a lot of political music. It definitely has to like inform that, because it's my experiences. Like right now, I mean, I've been writing a number of albums and other things, but I think for this band, especially as I'm moving forwards, it's something to definitely start thinking about for inspiration, because sometimes I write music, like just, you know, a melody pops up, you know, and like you write it, but sometimes it's more fun to write about a theme or a concept. I've done that a few times for more larger ensembles, not necessarily for like a quartet or quintet, but I mean, it has to. It's our lives. I mean, it's the lives we're in. It's the lives we made these choices. Like being part of CFE is a choice, and a great choice, and you know, it's something I don't regret. I think it's been a great opportunities to put my voice and a little bit my bit of my privilege and everything to good use. And especially working in the city, you know, I had a student who I've worked with now for 4 years, and just really pushed her, gave her some opportunities to like play music and do honors bands and go to Blue Lake. And she just got a full scholarship through a scholarship to attend Northwestern for free, completely for free. And she's first generation Latina. And I was like mentoring her sister, who's at art education in UIC, and like, you know, but like the same thing, it's like you can't be overbearing, you know, because you get that like, you got to just be like, here's these opportunities. And whoever takes them, you just say, let's do this. And then once in a while you get a student that's like, who's hungry for all opportunities. And she won't be music, but she has the appreciation for it and like the drive for it. And, you know, I've only been a handful of students, but like that one in particular is like, I've met when she was a freshman, and I was a first year teacher, and we've stayed in touch. And, you know, even though I'm not her teacher, we still stay in touch, and I give her lessons and through the All City program. And yeah, so it has to. I mean, especially coming from a more affluent upper middle class area, like, I mean, it's like second nature to be like, oh, there's band and there's jazz band and there's, you know, my marching band, or, you know, senior band has 100 kids in it, because they're just like whatever. So, and then when you go to a charter school and you have like 5, and it's not, you know, it's for whatever reason. You know, the reasons abound, but, you know, just to provide opportunities, because you never know what the kid's going to like or get into or do, or like how I'm going to be. Like, I'm always like wanting to be like the positive role model that like my teachers or my members of my family were to me in the classroom. And, you know, even though I'm in the suburbs now, there's still kids that need help, and there's still kids that, you know, have stuff going on. Just because they live in the suburbs doesn't necessarily mean that their life is perfect. It's different, but it's still trying to be active, like in the community here in the city of Chicago. Like, still live here. I don't want to leave the city and bring some of that money in, but, you know, and still being connected.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And how is it different than when you thought of this question 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's a good question because up until this summer, I thought I could potentially be moving back home to New York at any time, like if the right gig came up. And then in this pandemic, the right gig came up. And there was a balance between going back home or staying here. And I weighed my options and see if he hadn't been a thing yet. But I have a nonette and my friends and my roommate who's vibing me from across the room. You know, and I play soccer. I play sports in the city. I was trying to put down some roots. And even for first moving here, Chicago has just been really nice to me. And if you said to me, like, you know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I'd be like, nah, I'd be like back in New York City or in Los Angeles. I'm here. I would be like, Chicago, what? And I mean, or even the Midwest. Like the fact I lived in Michigan for 3 years is like, because again, I wanted to like be a big thing, go to like a big jazz school. I mean, Western was fine, you know, a good school, and but like be in a big city and do that and teach and like go to Smalls,
right,
go to the Blue Whale or whatever. I didn't like expect to like, oh, I'm hanging Hungry Brain and hanging at, you know, wherever, Constellation or the Whistler, you know, one of the clubs around here, or, you know, do our thing, obviously. So, you know, in 5 years, who knows, man? I mean, like this, I mean, at the moment, I don't really go anywhere, but, you know, that's not my choice sometimes, like based on family or based on circumstance. My grandmother always says it will be what it's going to be. And, you know, if like, cause not this summer, but last summer I applied to 30 jobs between Chicago, New York, and the New York tri-state area. And I had 2 interviews. Wow. And they were both here. And they didn't work out, obviously, but then the right thing worked out. And I love my new position, and my colleagues are really nice, and there's longevity there, and there's growth, and there's, you know, it's the kids, even though I've never met some of these kids in person. I've only taught them on Zoom. You know, they're really receptive. And I had even today I had a conversation with a student about like how many tries it took to record Jingle Bells. So he did 23 and he gave up. And we talked about like, what does it mean to like rejection? Like, what does it mean to like play on Zoom? Or play to a click track, or record yourself. You know, like we didn't do that growing up, and it wasn't until I was like in my early 20s that I like, you know, my young career that I like was thrown into those situations like very unprepared to be in a recording studio, just in a normal recording studio, not just to play along with a pre-recorded track and play rhythmically in time and play in tune and all that other stuff. And you're asking middle school developing musicians to do it who. You know, and you're just like, okay, play ta ta ti ti ta, or whatever. Right. You know, like just 1, 2, 3. You know, just play with nice tone, like you know, play with good rhythm. You know, if you get the notes, whatever, just like cool. And you know, especially in a new situation, and you know, when the last situation wasn't ideal for them, you know, whatever. So what's happening in 5 years? Who knows? Right. I don't know. It's like. I can't think that right now. It's, you know, just take it a year at a time, keep writing music, keep putting out stuff. I'm so thankful to be involved in this organization, and not be the leader per se, because of like leading my own groups is fun, but it's like, I like being a side man. It's fun being a side man. I don't get to do it a lot, and I do it in very limited capacities. And, yeah, so 5 years. I don't even know I'm doing in 5 minutes. I hear you. So, well, thank you, Sam, for chatting with me. You know, you're great. I'm glad
you're great, man.
I'm glad we became real life friends.
Yeah, for
not
real.
Facebook
not
friends,
just Facebook.
And Instagram friends, and I think I'm really excited to see where things take us.
Yeah, man. And you all can check out Sam Pilnick right now on the interwebs and enjoy this last tune.